Coming to you from a basement in Colorado, these two childhood best friends try to expand their horizons by experiencing the best in art, music, movies, literature, and experiences. These cultural pearls might get trampled in the process, but at least the pigs are going to be happy. This is the Swine Before Pearls podcast with Joel and Trent.
Hello, and welcome back to the Swine Before Pearls podcast, where today we are going to cover real things.
Real things, baby.
Yeah,
we put a lot of work into this.
Yeah,
one.
it was actually a lot of work and made me feel super stretched thin by the end of it.
Oh man, yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it first. So,
wait, hold on. I want to do
yeah.
the intro for this segment because this is a special segment because we're out in real world, breathing oxygen and actually interacting with people. And it's pigs in the field.
Pigs in the field.
Pigs in the field.
Oink,
two in the
oink.
bush. Oink, oink.
Oh, we have a camera now. We're
Yeah.
probably not going to release the footage,
I don't care.
but
All right, so let's talk about it. Yeah, that was a gnarly weekend for us.
oh yeah. So just for like kind of background, because we haven't even talked about what we were doing, but
No.
yeah, after we recorded the last session, we were kind of just like stuck as to what to do. And I was kind of like, well, my friend is going to be in this play and we could do that.
Which I like pretty immediately jumped on. Like I heard play and I was like, oh, this sounds like this could be a very cool experience to go to live theater. But then I realized your friend was in it, so I felt like I couldn't be as objective as I wanted to be.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same. And like, if we really didn't like the show and we wanted to be genuine and like have an entertaining podcast, that would also ruin the show.
Yeah.
So what we did instead was I completely ignored my friend and we didn't go to her show.
Oh my god. No. Did you make any prior commitments that
No, I did not.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not make any commitment.
I'd feel a lot worse about that if you were like, "Hey, we're gonna go," and then it's like, "Actually, we went all the way across Colorado to go see another play."
We went to the exact opposite side of Colorado to watch a play.
Oh man,
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, we threw that together pretty last minute. That was kind of pulling that out of our butts, but
Yeah.
I think it really worked out.
It really did. So yeah, we ended up deciding to go. Our first play was over in what's
Cripple
that?
Creek.
Cripple Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, for anyone who lives in Colorado, you might know where that is. It's a small town.
And let me set the scene. It was a good start to the day. We had kind of had some coffee and breakfast in my RV, some really good chats. It was a 1 o'clock play, wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
like 1
that's
o'clock.
right. We thought it was 1:30, but it was
It
actually
turned
1
out
o'clock.
it was 1 o'clock. So
So
it
we
always
missed
pays to be a little early. But it was just like a really good morning and like, I don't know, just a really sweet drive through the mountains in the fall. It did not feel like we were going to go do a play. Like
No.
during that whole drive, I was thinking in my head, we're going to go hiking. It's like, we're not going to go sit in a dark room for 4 hours. Like, look at all this nature. It's so beautiful. So from the start, it was a good vibe, but it was also kind of an unpredictable vibe of like, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Especially since the play we were going to go to was like, I thought it was like a horror play. It was like Halloween themed.
I'm so excited to talk about this, by
yeah.
the way. I've been thinking about this for so long. But yeah, we were trying to figure out what the vibe, what the play was.
Yeah, I mean, like the image that they had for the advertising, like gave me kind of the feeling of like, oh, this is gonna be like dark and there's gonna be blood on the stage. It's gonna be so violent.
I was excited because you were like, oh, this is a horror play. And I'm thinking, how would that even work in real time? Like, are they going to kill somebody and it's going to be really graphic, and we're just going to be sitting there like, what the heck? And like, are people going to pop out from under the seats, and it's going to be really cheesy and all this other stuff. But Cripple Creek, before we get into the play, Cripple Creek was a trip.
Oh yeah. And we were talking quite a bit about just the general area of Cripple Creek. And the notable thing about Cripple Creek is that the only thing you can really do there is slot machines. Like,
yeah, it's all gambling.
Yeah, the whole place, like, we were trying to find food, and it was just like, oh, that's gambling, that's gambling.
Yeah, no, it was kind of crazy because I've been to a few mountain towns before, and usually you can find other things. Like, there wasn't even a gas station in town from what I could see that you could stop and like, because I was like, okay, I could use some coffee, and we found a coffee shop in like this random t-shirt store, like touristy t-shirt store. And I mean, the people were super nice, but it was just the oddest thing. And it felt like a post-apocalyptic like ghost town where their only export is gambling. And it's just all these old people sitting on benches outside these casinos, and no one's really talking. Like, it doesn't feel like vibrant at all.
It's not alive.
Yeah.
It was also interesting just thinking, like, there were houses there. There's people who live there.
Yeah.
And, like, if you're a kid growing up there, there's not a whole lot to do. And
it's out of the way.
Yeah.
It's probably a 30-minute drive back down towards Woodland Park.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot to do in Woodland Park.
Yeah, but that's even like your closest bastion of sort of civilization. And I just got this really like this weird vibe that they were trying to capture, like, oh, we're this old West town and gold and mining and gambling and shucksy doodle. And it just felt like such a pale imitation of that. And it's just this kind of dilapidated area that no one really wants to spend a lot of time there unless you're in a casino. And Trent found his new vice.
Oh yeah,
while we were there.
I'm a gambling addict.
Trent is a gambling addict. And
I gambled Joel's $5 away.
So for it was kind of funny because we got there pretty early, and I kind of thought, well, we walked around the town. We went to this old antique store where this lady knocked a pot off the shelf or something, and it broke.
Yeah, and she said, like, I'm like 64 years old, and I've never done this in my life. She was just so insistent.
She was like, it was like she was under the hot lights because the shop manager was right down like an earshot away. And as soon as something fell to the floor, I just put my hands up. Like, I didn't touch anything. If anything broke, I'm not paying for it. I don't want to be here. Like, we're just two kooky dudes that thought, oh, it'll be fun to go in here and look at these old Chinese dolls or whatever.
It was a really weird vibe too. It was like my grandparents' house if they were even more of hoarders.
It was so weird. And that was like one of the only shops open that had something sort of unique to it. But back to the gambling, we're just kind of walking around town and waiting for our play to start. And it was weird because we were there for a very specific reason of going to a play at the like last place in Colorado that you would imagine, this is where I'm going to go see a play. And so we were trying to kill some time, and I have a history with addiction, and I really don't want to start gambling. So I just kind of said, and Trent was like, well, I kind of want to try my shot at it. And we didn't really have any money and didn't really care to like meet a pit boss and get our card swiped and get tokens or whatever. So I just handed Trent $5.
Yeah. And I pressed the button 5 times.
He threw it in the machine. We didn't even like pick a machine. It was just the first one by the door. And the man didn't even try to ease into it and turn it into anything. He stood next to it and just slap, slap, slap.
They were at $5. We won 12 cents.
He kept slapping it. And I was like, he's like, why is it not working? And I said, Trent, the money's gone. It's over. We have no money left.
We gambled the whole $5 away.
So we have a little receipt from that. No, I still have 16 cents worth of credit that is redeemable at the Golden Ass Casino Resort.
Yeah.
Very depressing place. Dude, would not want to be there longer than the 2 minutes that we were there.
If you're not into gambling, then like going to casinos is super depressing.
It really is.
You just kind of like look at people and they're just like sitting, pressing the button, and you know, it doesn't look that exciting, but
yeah, so
that's how vices go.
It added kind of to the overall sadness of the town, I would say, kind of going into there. And so I think all that background of Cripple Creek, my expectations for the play at that point were insanely low. You know, at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to have a good time, but this is going to be really chossy. Like this is going to I don't think this is going to be very good.
Yeah. And we go in there and it's like all older folks, right? And nothing against them, but it's like we're clearly not the demographic that was intended to like be there.
Yeah.
Or that was expected to be there. There was even like an old dude who like was kind of making a joke at our expense. He was like, "Oh, did you guys like get left behind by your mom or something like that?"
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah. he was giving a little dig at us, like, because we were just these two. We were like the only. There was one other guy who was our age, and he was like there with his family, and like kind of gave off like serious homeschool vibes.
Yeah, like I still live in my basement and play with Bionicle vibes. I was self-projecting a little bit.
that was your future had you not gone down a different path.
But it was such an interesting crowd because some people weren't even like, some people were just locals from just the general area, not even tourists who just go to the Playhouse for something to do. So you see kind of these cowboy rancher looking types, which was really interesting, intermingled with, you know, people who are in town looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Some dude with an Edgar Allan Poe t-shirt and like a long ponytail.
But long story short, we were very out of place.
Yeah. I felt okay. I want to strike that. I felt a little bit more in place with that crowd because I was kind of like wearing my boots and a flannel shirt. Like it was kind of like a gruff, like it felt like just like a cowboy scene. You know what I mean?
But
like
we were not in the demographic.
Not in the demographic, no. But like I think you stuck out more like a sore thumb in terms of just our looks, base looks outside of our age. I think you stuck in that environment. You stuck out more like a sore thumb, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm here, and I'm gonna, you know, hit on the nice ladies in the play. No, I'm just kidding. That never crossed my mind, but yeah. And then
the play started. I think the thing that got me kind of excited was they were introducing the play, and they talked about how it was actually based on like a local brothel.
Yeah.
Like it was a story about a local brothel.
It was
so it was like a haunted house story, but it took place in the actual area. And that was suddenly all of a sudden I was like, wow, you know, this is something locally made. Like I can't disrespect that to a certain extent because like it's not something that was just thrown together and they're like, oh, let's just buy the rights to this play.
Yeah. It was very unique. You know, it was one of those things that unless you were in that town in Cripple Creek, you wouldn't see this really anywhere else. And the day was so educational. I was not expecting it to be as educational as it was. And just as more time went on, it was just like more educational, and it was like a field trip.
Yeah.
You know?
And really, I think one of the main things I started learning was that like there's so much more to what I can be entertained by
Mm,
than like I knew for myself.
yeah.
Because generally what I perceive as something that can entertain me is something that I would be demographically suited for.
Yeah.
So like I like this video game because people who also like the same games I like this game.
Mm,
There was really nobody like me at the play, but it was actually very enjoyable.
yeah. Well, and if to take your video game example, those are made by people trying to specifically target you. Like it wasn't like this was made to get people like us in there. Like we
No,
were just
absolutely
way
not.
out of left field. And I think that gave just like a greater connection to what I was experiencing because it was like nobody our age is going and doing this thing right now. Seeking this out. Like
Yeah,
this is
we
just
might have
unique
been
to us.
Yeah, we might have been the only people our age who like went out of their way to buy tickets,
Yeah.
drive up there and watch the show, especially guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a pretty big commitment to go there and do that. And yeah. And then the play starts and man, what an interest just like honestly, if I can just start, I'll just say I was pretty blown away by it. Like
Yeah, it was very good. It had the sort of plot where everything kind of ties together nicely.
why don't you just quickly like do like a Cliff Notes version of the plot?
All right, so you've got this house of women who sleep with men, right?
House of ill repute, as we
Yes.
like to call it in the business.
A house with negative associations. And here's the problem. All of the women who work in various roles within the brothel, if you will.
They're prostitutes.
Yes. They have left the prostitute house.
That sounds like a West Coast like TikToker. Like, hey guys, welcome to the prostitute house.
Gosh.
My name's Joelford Joelbrick. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So, the madame of the house is the only one left, and she decides that she needs to save this, and she hires 3 investigators to find out. You have a detective, and she's like this very forward-thinking feminist woman who is like very aggressive in her feminism and like will find any excuse to like kind of preach her values.
Yeah, and this is all set in like late 1800s, early 1900s in the town of Cripple Creek on the street that we're on, which is a really interesting character trope for that time period because it's just not something that really existed. So it's kind of campy that way, and I really like that honestly about that.
It was very cute and fun.
Yeah.
Then you have like not cyberpunk. What's that? Steampunk. A steampunk ghostbuster and a preacher. And there's this kind of mystery about it. Like, why is the ghost haunting this place?
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a groundskeeper that's in the story. And it starts out and each investigator uses their own method to try and ascertain the nature of the ghost, what it wants, and how they can get rid of it so that the brothel can reopen for business. So each inspector kind of goes through their own deal. And first you have the detective woman, and she uses her logical reasoning and goes through this whole thing. Can't really find the ghost.
Yeah.
Then you have the Ghostbuster guy, and before he starts doing his whole shenanigans, the detective lady realizes that he's just a fraud, and it's all bells and whistles. He's literally like ringing a bell to distract from the fact that he's just a goofball, and he kind of he's a skeptic at heart, so he kind of wants to prove that the ghost is fake, and then make the money from the situation.
And he's a charlatan too.
Yeah,
That's
he's
like
a charlatan.
that's like his whole thing. And I thought the preacher character was really compelling. Like he came in and kind of just like demanded the stage, even though being
Oh yeah, that actor was like really charming.
he really was. Like he came in and I was like, oh, that was okay. That's what I can say about that play was like there wasn't. I really got to take myself out of the role of like being a skeptic in any way. Like everyone was very charming, very
Yeah.
like wholesome in their performances that I never thought, man, this actor's just like really annoying and really hamming it up. Like they just seemed to have like good chemistry and they were just playing their parts really well. And I really enjoyed that part of that.
No, genuinely, it was the most charming experience I had ever had in my life.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Like I literally tried to think back this week. Have I seen anything more charming in my life? No. Go to Cripple Creek and watch their silly plays. They are so charming.
They are very charming. That was the word that I came out. I think we both came out of there. It was like
neither of us spoke it to each other.
It was just immediately thought like that was such a charming experience because it was like, you know, you're these actors probably with big dreams and you're in the middle of Cripple Creek, but you're like doing your heart out for this performance for a bunch of like random cowboys and in this tiny venue, but you're doing it and you're loving it and everyone's like having a good time and you're genuinely entertaining people.
Yeah.
And the plot of the story was just carried so well, and the mix of comedy. I was not expecting so much like comedy and pretty genuine comedy.
It was
too.
funny. Do you remember like anything that got you? Because that would probably make the retelling better.
So there's this part where so essentially a core part of the story that I found is everyone's a liar in the story.
Yeah.
Everyone is trying to hide something about themselves throughout the story to gain something, to make themselves feel better about something. So for instance, the feminist writer lady or the feminist detective lady is actually a writer and she's never actually done detective work.
She just writes about detective work as herself.
Yeah. So she's just like this vision of kind of faking it till you make it and wanting to live the fantasies that she writes about. And then the Ghostbusters guy is a charlatan, so he's using his tricks of his tricks of misdirect and charisma, all this other stuff to basically get himself around the situation. And there's a money incentive that brings these people together. And then there's the preacher, which I'll spoil it here because...
Oh no, not the play that probably won't air anymore by the time this episode airs.
Probably won't see it. But the preacher is like the main villain because they eventually discover that the ghost that's haunting the whorehouse or prostitute room, house of ill repute, is not a vengeful ghost because somebody killed her, but because somebody took something from her, and that was her baby. And so the preacher ends up to be the main bad guy, and there's like that double take. But anyways, they're going through because somebody says, is there anyone who's just state who you are and what you do, kind of, because all the stories are getting mixed up. Oh, and the groundskeeper is a notorious drunk. So they're just going through and they're saying, yeah, my name's blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually a magician and I'm not a Ghostbuster. My name's blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually a writer and not a detective. And then the big guy gets up on stage and he says, my name's blah, blah, blah. and I'm an alcohol, and everybody's like, no, not that. And it was just such a genuine like flow and laughter. And there's just like really cheesy jokes that normally I probably wouldn't have laughed at. But like the way they handled the content was just so sincere, but handled with just such a goofiness too.
Yeah. And I came out of the play and I came into the play with actually a question. And the question was, why should we go to the theater when we have movies and TV shows and just all sorts of other entertainment?
Yeah.
What does theater bring to the table? Like, I genuinely had the thought that the reason theater exists is we all go to the theater to humor the actors. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily true. Like, if you go to a Broadway show, there's obviously like a ton of spectacle there.
Yeah.
And they really go crazy for Broadway shows. But like, I mean, that's been most of my experience with going to plays is like, oh, you know, Zach is the tech guy for this high school play. Let's go watch this play because he's helping with it.
Yeah. Or like the time I went to your play
Yeah,
because you were in it.
I was an actor, and I kind of thought that was what the whole thing was about, was just the people who are going to this play are kind of here just to humor me so that I can have my time in the sun, be an actor, have some fun.
Yeah.
But after that, I realized there is something in theater as an art form that doesn't exist in any other art form.
Yeah.
And like, there is no other art form where you can say, this was made for the exact situation that I'm in. This play was written so that I could go to this theater in this exact hall and watch these exact actors, and it's built in with their charm, and it's so personal.
Yeah.
Right. And it's entertainment that is brought forth by the pure charm of the actors, which I thought even more so in the second play, because I didn't realize when I bought the tickets that we were actually buying tickets for two plays.
Yeah, we'll go back to that little fun foible of the day, which turned out to even make our day even more amazing. But what I would say about that specific experience, because I agree with you, I kind of came in and I was thinking, man, plays are just. I respect theater. I think I understand musicals more because they're more about the music, you know, the talent of acting, but also being like a musician and being skilled that way. But I think what I was kind of blown away by was the fact that there was part of the charm was we were participating in something of in a bygone era, you know, like we got a taste of Americana that just doesn't exist anymore. And I think it was specifically the fact that we were in this dilapidated old Western mining town, but we're just sitting there and people, you know, the lady next to us was just sharing local history. And we were just like talking to her and hearing people's just genuine stories. And no one really had an air about themselves of like, I'm too good for blank. Everyone was just everyone in that theater was just seemed like a genuine person kind of living out their life. And we just got to be in this old cowboy town and watch a theater in this old building, you know, a play in this old building. And it just it had the vibe of like, wow, this doesn't exist anymore. Like we live in such a culture of like, go to your local shopping center with the movie theater and the paint by numbers movies, and that's your experience. And this was just, it just seemed more raw and like a part of an old West America that we never really get to see. And I think that was part of what that experience was trying to create. But I think there were a lot of other factors outside of that that helped boost that sentiment of you're just reliving the Old West. Like if we were living in that town, we'd probably either be gambling at night. You know, if we were cowboys in that town, we'd either be gambling at night or going to the play hall and seeing a show, because that's just what you do. There's no TV, there's no movies.
Yeah, and I think more than anything in my life, this was something that wasn't mass produced.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other entertainment that I've seen where it wasn't meant for a larger audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was meant for an audience of maybe 2,000 people will see this show ever.
Yeah, total.
And we got to see that, and it was very genuine to the situation we were in, and it was just so cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it really brought you in as an audience member and just made you a part of the show. And I don't know. I think the standout point for me, the music was really well done.
Yeah.
And it's just this dude who wrote all the music for this at a piano on the side, just playing this. And he wrote all the music for this play. And
was that the dude who wrote it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote he wrote all the music for this play, and he's just there playing it, which is kind of incredible because there's a lot of music in there.
Yeah, and it was well written. It wasn't even like the concession of like, oh, this is okay for a guy who just wrote this by himself. It was like, this is actually good. Like we saw a good product.
Yeah.
In this little dingy theater.
And I think the standout part in that was when the ghost chick was singing. She had a really, really, really stellar voice. Like just a really beautiful voice. And I had this moment where I'm sitting there and I'm just like locked eye. Like my eyes are locked on her.
And
like
then
I'm not
imagine that you get married to her.
I did. No, but I was just like I noticed that if you locked eyes with the actors at certain moments, they would lock eyes with you and really just like make you a part of that scene. And when she was singing, we had this moment of probably like 10 seconds of you're just sneering at me. But no, this is serious. This was a big moment. You fell in love
with the ghost lady.
No, she didn't just serve me popcorn at the beginning, which was another thing I really liked was all the actors, you could talk to them.
Yeah.
Because they were all running a concession at the thing. And it was just like, I can go up and talk to you and say, hey, good luck. Or you did a great job. I really like that. Even though they're like miles above in their talent and you can see the work that they've put in this. They're just doing everyday stuff.
Yeah, but it had like a very homely feel to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't like your cringy high school play. It was so much more than that.
There was talent.
So back to my story. She's singing her song about how her baby's missing or something like that, which I could feel and I could resonate with. No, but we just like locked eyes for 10 seconds. And there was this moment where I just felt like I was the only person in the room. And I'm looking at this songbird, you know, she was a songbird. Like she was so good. And it blew me away because it wasn't like, okay, this person's going to try and sing and we're going to be like, yeah, good job. It was like, you have such a good voice and it's so clear. And it projects all the way to the back. And I don't know, I was just like very mesmerized in that moment. Like it's still seared into my brain of like, wow, that was such a good performance. Like, sorry. I haven't seen a live performance like that in a long time. You know, outside of her being a beautiful woman, blah, blah, blah. It was just music. Stop blushing. Dang it. Stop. I'm trying. So cute. This is why I can't be real about anything because I'm never taken seriously. Anyways, hot chick saying good. Me like.
Pretty girl. You gotta be respectful, Joel.
Beautiful.
All right. If you
I'm
ever,
such a creepy old
Yeah.
man, dude. I felt like a creepy old man sometimes.
he was like, Joel literally told me, and I feel kind of bad for bringing this
No,
on the
just
podcast.
we're here. Let's
but
go.
he told me like, I don't want to be like creepy, so I'm not going to say this on the podcast. But that girl was actually like super, super cute and pretty. And I completely agree.
Thank you.
But you're welcome.
We'll fight for
also-
the death over her.
But also, it was just, it's a lot of fun to just like rile Joel up just by looking at him
Dude,
in the podcast.
Ghost Lady, if you're out there,
Come through.
Come
on
through.
the podcast.
yeah, we got a basement here in Colorado. All right, that sounded weird. Don't come. Yeah, so that was a big moment, and
Gosh. You.
okay, that was good. It
Yeah.
was really good.
It was an
She
entertaining show.
sings really well. She does. She's such a good singer.
It's not even that funny.
It's not. Okay, let's
get
move
going.
on.
Okay, so next up we had the Halloween Oleo, which
Oh yeah.
in concept is the goofiest thing I've seen in my entire life. Like genuinely, if I were to look at a script for this play and say, Joel, do you think this will be a good play? What do you think your answer would be?
It would be no.
No. It seemed like in concept, it's super goofy. And as I was watching it, I had this moment where I was like, I wanted to be too cool for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was sitting watching because basically the whole premise is like they've adapted all of these pre-existing songs. A lot of songs for older folks. It did start out with like, this is Halloween. Like
They're
from-
like, do you know this one from the 1950s?
Yeah.
And like 4 people would go, oh yeah, I
No,
remember that.
the old lady next to me was like singing along to every song. But
that's cute.
there were just like these little dances, and it was loosely connected by a cheesy plot, which I think we can talk about at some point, just because I think it'd be
Let's
fun.
talk about it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the plot.
You're the plot guy.
Yeah.
I just remember good singing and pretty eyes.
The plot is pretty basic. So you have Frankenstein, and he's in love with Frankenstein's wife. I think it like that monster from the old movie. And he actually sings this like super goofy song where it's just like he sings one syllable at a time about how he loves this other Frankenstein lady. And so that he falls in love with her, and they decide to get married. But the Count Dracula is an incel, and he's had his heart broken by another vampire who
He
was
hates women.
yeah, the other vampire was played by the pretty girl. And so, he has his heart broken, and he convinces Frankenstein, or he kind of gives Frankenstein cold feet, and Frankenstein falls apart right at the wedding, and then Dracula and the other monster who's like Igor decide to cheer Frankenstein up, and they go back through with the wedding. And I think that's the whole play.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the whole play.
That's the general plot, probably stretched over an hour with like intermittent singing and just like random skits. But holy crap, what a range to see the players that you just saw on stage doing this one very specific role, pretty much completely flip their roles over and become these different characters in the span of 10 minutes. And pretty convincing too. Like you didn't think, oh, that was the guy from that. You were just kind of like, oh, that's Frankenstein.
Yeah,
That's kind of funny.
They changed rules, but it wasn't like they were set in your mind as to who they were.
No.
But yeah, that was where the word charming like came to the forefront of my mind,
Mhm.
because you see them doing these silly dances, and it's to songs that I don't care about, don't even enjoy that much. Like I do not care for the music that was playing
No.
whatsoever. But there was so much heart that like I'm sitting there And it's like, I'm too cool for this. I'm too cool for this. But there's this huge grin just like beaming over my face. And I look at Joel and it's the exact same thing. And I know that Joel wants to be too cool for this.
Dude, I wanted so hard. I was like crossing my arms and I was just kind of like, okay, we did the play. That was fun. And now we're going to do this whole skits thing. But it was so hard to just like keep a straight face. And they were telling the worst jokes.
Yeah, every single transition between songs, they would do like this stand-up.
Bad.
They were super cheesy, but it was so endearing.
It was so good.
Like, there's also a special place in my heart for cheesy jokes because I worked at like a kids camp for 7 years, and that changes a man. You know, your only joy in life at certain points is just making children suffer with the worst jokes you can think of that you've been telling for every single year that you've worked at that camp, and that the staff before you told every single year.
Yeah.
And so like there's a special place in my heart for just awful jokes.
It was so natural to just drop your ego. Why do you need to be a cool guy?
Yeah,
you know, it's
you
like
don't.
it's like these are actors that probably want to be doing super dignified acting roles on big Broadway plays, but they're also here to entertain you, you know? And it's like they're not too big for this to put themselves out like this. The least you can do is not be too big for it either. And if you participate in that, there's just this back and forth of just joy and that's what I love. There was so much joy in that building in a place where I thought that there just seemed really desolate, gray, and really awful. And for 4 hours in one tiny little building in Cripple Creek, Colorado, there was just a ton of joy from everyone in there. And it was booming with that.
Oh yeah. It was the whole point of seeing something so personal was you felt like the jokes were made for you as you're sitting in this small crowd. You felt like the actors were there for you in a certain way. And everything was just so personal. And that's something you can't get in entertainment anymore. You can get it like they pretend to be personal at Starbucks or whatever, and they'll know your name and get you your special cup of coffee, but it's also like pretty mass produced. You go to this play and it's meant for that stage, for that audience, and the actors are people you can know, and the charm is everywhere on the stage, and you fall in love with everything that's there because you realize that it's just so fun.
Yeah. And that could not be replicated and mass produced. Like that lives there.
No, if I watched any, like if we went to that same like Playhouse we did in Littleton later that night and watched that show,
that'd be a completely different experience.
I would probably just like fall apart in my seat and be like, this is garbage.
This is awful.
Which is not an insult to the script and saying like, oh, the actors elevated the content. It was just that as we watched, like it was clearly made for that place and time.
Yeah.
And that was so cool.
Yeah, everything was the breeding ground for the perfect vibe to enjoy that. And it was great. It was great. Like I would recommend to anybody listening, they have a Christmas play coming up. I don't know if it's the same actors or whatever, but I think Trent and I might try and go maybe see that.
We talked about it just because it was so much fun.
Just because it was fun. And like, this was a fun experience to have. And if you're looking for, and we could have just been sitting around, watching TV or something on our day off, but we made this big trip up there and had this amazing experience. And it didn't feel like, okay, let's never do that again. It was like, let's go do that again sometime. Like that was genuinely good and fun.
Which was way above my expectations, because I think the highest expectation I had for it was maybe like, this was worth my time.
Yeah.
That was genuinely like the most I expected. Was like, I would rather do this than stare at the wall. That was the most I expected. But that was probably the most fun I've had in a good while.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
It was genuinely, I was just expecting to be amused. I was like, okay, I'm going to be amused by this. And it was just a kind of a let it all hang out environment. Come as you are, doesn't matter who you are, come in and enjoy this.
And that's what Pigs in the Field is all about.
That's what Pigs in the Field is all about. Okay, but the story doesn't end there.
No, so
you guys ready for the absolute existential fever dream trip that we went on after this, with absolutely no psychoactive drugs involved, just sleep deprivation, 5 hours of driving, and more plays? Well, boy, do we have it for you, because that is just what we turned into.
Yep. We drove from Cripple Creek to Littleton, which, first off, that's a long drive. That's, what is that, 3 hours? No, that's like 2 hours.
No, dude. It was an hour and a half from Cripple Creek to Colorado Springs, kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
And then it was an extra 50 minutes. So it was a little bit over
2 hours.
2 hours. So it was probably two and a half hours both ways. So that's about 5 hours total of driving.
And for context, for anyone listening who doesn't live in Colorado, Littleton and Cripple Creek are pretty much the exact opposite vibes.
Oh yeah.
Like Littleton is like in this area of suburbs of Denver, and it is like that little
city suburbs.
Yeah,
kind of.
That little area of like Littleton, Centennial, Highlands Ranch. That's probably like the suburbiest suburbs in Colorado.
And it's growing, and like downtown Littleton has this booming Main Street arts district. There's all these craft breweries and local artists. It's just very gentrified, I would say now is a good way I would describe it. It's just trying to be like downtown Littleton's a pretty decent place to go hang out every now and again.
It's very nice, very pretty.
But I think if you stepped out of it for a second, you could see like, oh, this is trying to be a hip, young area of commerce and, whatever. And yeah, I mean, it is. So, the very stark difference in the places we went.
From this little gambling town that is super rundown, and like that's kind of the charm of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we go into the Playhouse.
Okay. I gotta before story that. I'm falling asleep here.
He drank so much coffee.
I drank
every single stop. We had coffee. Literally, okay. So we stop at Joel's house in the Springs area, and we get coffee. And then we go to the Playhouse, and we go outside the Playhouse, and there's a coffee shop, and Joel says, I need to get coffee, and he drinks coffee.
Okay.
And then we go into the Playhouse.
It's 8 o'clock. It's like 8 or 9 o'clock, by the way.
And he literally, like just a minute ago, bought a cup of coffee.
And I drank it and spilt half of it on myself outside of the Playhouse. As people in suits are starting to walk into this Playhouse, I literally boofed all this coffee all over the front of my shirt. And then I had to turn around and walk in.
But Joel finds out there's coffee in the Playhouse, and he goes and buys another cup of coffee. Literally everywhere we went that day, you bought coffee.
Yeah, I needed it. I felt it, especially the late hours, because that was starting to be like, we were getting into marathon mode where I'm like, I need to kick myself into gear here and keep this train rolling, because if I don't, I'm gonna crash.
Yeah. But just going into the Playhouse was also a super stark contrast from the other one.
Completely different vibe.
It was like the same demographic age-wise, I would say. Maybe trending a little younger.
I would say it was more like millennials were there that I could see.
Millennials mixed in with some older
folks. Yeah.
But it was so stuffy.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
It was the exact opposite vibe. We're sitting there, and it was like we didn't really feel comfortable talking to each other. We were just kind of sitting there.
We didn't want to talk to people next to us or around us.
There are these other people like, oh yeah, like I'm big into theater, and you know, I turned down this role because I don't want to be in a play unless I'm the lead actress.
Oh, that was like probably the most annoying thing for me in the day, because we went to, there's this big dude in a cowboy hat, and we're just talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I used to live in Alaska, and you ever go fishing in Alaska? Oh, you boys should try it. You know, just like telling us like this dude living out in the bush in Alaska, and we're just at the same play as him, to, oh yeah, I'm this, like, oh, are you in theater? Yes, I'm in theater. I was the star role. Do you still work in theater? Oh, I haven't done it. I can't sing in a mask. Could you imagine doing theater in COVID times? And it just felt like Batman's fundraiser. Just like everyone's got to stick up their butt. And I'm sure there were some nice people in there, but it just felt, it was
stuffy.
It was so stuffy. It was so snooty. And I was just like, and I'm covered in coffee and just kind of slumped over in my chair.
I fit in pretty nicely because I was a very presentable young man.
Yes. So
the fleece that my sister got me came in clutch. I just looked super nice.
Trent looked good for this thing. Trent looked like he actually took the time to, you know, not be like wearing, because some people were wearing suits.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw suit coats, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, Joe literally asked me, like, should I have not brought these clothes? Should I have worn nicer clothes?
I and this is a rare occasion, but I buttoned up my collar. And put my sleeves down.
You buttoned up your collar? You opened up your shirt. You were showing whole cleavage. It was all out there.
I thought I buttoned it up.
No, you buttoned it down.
I did something.
You got uncomfortable and you decided it's time to show everyone my chest.
The night was starting to spiral out of my control. I started to lose sanity. I was on 8 cups of coffee. I didn't know what planet I was on. Oh man. But yes, to your benefit, and my kudos to you. You looked very nice and presentable.
I did.
And I would let you in at any low-level community college business school in America.
I mean, I'm a city boy. I fit in nicely in the city. You know, I'm uncomfortable just like everybody else is supposed to be in that suburban environment.
Oh man.
But I guess we can start talking about the play now.
Yeah, so
we went and saw The Fantastics.
The Fantastics. Fun fact, I asked Trent as we sat down for the play, I leaned over to him and I said, what are we watching again? Because I didn't even know. I was just like really out of it, kind of forgot that we were going to a second play.
Yeah, I bought the tickets like kind of last second and just didn't tell Joel what we were doing except where it was.
Yeah, so I'm just... you know, I see a treasure chest and a tree on the stage, and I was like, we're going to see some we're going to see some trippy stuff. And I was just trying to figure out from Trent, like, what is, like, is this Peter Pan?
Which
like,
The Fantastics as a title means nothing.
Nothing at all.
And it hardly has anything to do with the play, really. I mean, it kind of does, but...
I think I could talk about this play more in just general themes rather than a coherent plot.
Yeah, and like if you're interested based on what we talk about the play, like you can find it out. But the goal of this episode wasn't to relay plot to you guys.
No.
It was to talk about our experience at the theater.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's pigs in the field. We're finding out what's out there.
Pigs in a blankie.
Pigs in a blanket.
Yeah, so Fantastics, not a helpful title. I did not know what I was in for.
No, me neither. Interestingly, though, I have actually had experience with the play that I didn't know about.
Really?
Yeah, because when I was in 5th grade, we had this new music teacher, right? And she came to our class, and she was not a very popular teacher. She was not engaging to listen to, and like just didn't know how to hold a room, how to engage with 5th graders. So she was kind of tough and like didn't really get along with the students well. And the song "Soon It's Gonna Rain" was one of the songs she chose for us to sing. And all I remember about that song is all these other 5th graders like, this song is a sexual innuendo. No, nobody liked the song, and really, that is not like one of the better songs in the play.
No, that one was kind of cringe.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, it was all right.
Apparently she liked it enough that she decided the 5th graders are gonna sing this song. But
oh boy, did it rain.
Oh my.
No, keep going.
So yeah, as they were like singing the song in the play, I just had these vivid flashbacks of these, like, I could hear these just annoyed children singing along to the song as the musical was going on. And that was what I knew the song for, is just like these annoyed 5th graders saying, "Soon it's gonna rain. I can feel it. Soon it's gonna rain. Rain pell-mell. And we'll not complain if it never stops at." And that was my experience with the Fantastics.
I like that this random play we showed up for dug out a deep repressed childhood memory.
I still think about that song sometimes.
Oh man. Oh dude. Okay. I just like remember looking over at you, and I probably looked the same. We were just like slowly, like, I think we were following with the play, but every time I looked at you, I could tell you were like trying very hard to pay attention and slowly going out of it. Like, well, as the play went.
Yeah. I mean, and the first act of the play kind of sucks, in my opinion, because it focuses on like this love story, and it's all set up so that it can subvert your expectations in a really like interesting way.
Yeah.
But like the love story itself kind of sucks. It's these two lovers, and they're separated by a wall. They're young kids.
They're neighbors.
Yeah. Like they fall in love across the wall. And I've heard stories like that before. Yeah. Like it's a very like standard fable tale. And
that was sophomore year of high school for me.
They have a bunch of songs about it, and you're like, okay, this sucks.
Yeah. I didn't think it was like, oh, this sucks, but I was definitely less engaged. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Especially like I was thinking like the last play was so charming, and this is like, these are somewhat likable actors doing.
Yeah, the actors were good.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty standard, quirky play.
It was quirky. It was like, here's the girl, and she's talking about riding dolphins, and it was just like this 2013 Tumblr-esque. I'm quirky, and this is my quirky boyfriend, and look at our quirky family, and I did like the guy who plays the wall, who's just basically a silent character that does facial expression and holds up. Mad kudos to you, wall dude, because you must have arms of steel. You held a pole. I want everyone to try and hold a pole with a little bit of weight like this in the air.
Nobody can see you. Just like out straight in front of you.
Air.
Wait, no, just because most people won't experience this podcast on video. We're probably not even releasing the podcast on video, and you're knocking over the microphone.
At some point, this footage will be released, but imagine holding up a stick for 20 minutes straight and not flinching. That guy must have forearms like Zeus's thighs.
But he's a pretty skinny guy.
He was a skinny dude, but I bet that guy can do push-ups with his pinky.
Yeah.
So mad props to you, Mr. Wall. You did a good job. I'm a big fan.
But it's a clever subversion where you find out that the parents who were pretending to hate each other and built this wall because they hated each other and wanted to keep the children away from each other, they actually used it as like a ploy to set the children up.
Yeah.
And there's like this really cute and charming song about how the parents did this because if you want kids to do something, just tell them not to do it.
And great older actors, parents are very, very classically trained, very good at what they do.
Yeah. And that was one of my main takeaways was like you watch the younger actors and they're good.
Yeah.
Like,
and we got to see younger actors in Cripple Creek as well.
Yeah. And like this isn't an insult to them that like the older actors were way better. It was just that like the older actors, you could tell they had experience.
Yeah.
And every single mannerism they brought to the table was incredible and nuanced. And like you watch the younger people and it's like they are just acting well. Like they have not had the years to develop the skills that these older actors have.
Yeah, I think what I could say about the older actors is you could tell they completely lost themselves in the role. Like if I met that guy on the street, I wouldn't have known him except for as that person he was playing.
Yeah, you can't see him doing anything else.
Versus some of the younger actors, I was like, oh, you know, from either play, I could see myself, I could hang out with them on the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like I could see myself being buddies with them and I think about how their actual personalities are maybe off stage. And for the older actors, it was just
they were completely there.
Lost in the role.
Yeah. And it showed me something I never really realized, which is the difference between an actor who is like very talented, very good. Like I've worked with them. I've been in plays. I've seen good actors, but acting is a skill that you can keep honing on, keep improving on. And it was kind of to the point where it's kind of the play's fault too. It's entirely the play's fault. But whenever the young people were on stage, I'm like, get these kids off the stage. I want to see the old
I
people.
hate children.
But like there was so much charm in that, which again, no hate on the young people. They are great actors.
Way better than we probably could have shook a stick at it.
There's a reason why I did not get the leading roles in the high school plays I was in. I had one line in my thoroughly modern Millie play. I was the dishwasher and I had one line, and in one of the performances, I said it at the wrong time.
What was your line?
You missed a spot. I said it at the wrong time. It was a very specific cue, you know.
You missed the line.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I played it off all right.
I'm sure you did.
But I had one line and I screwed it up. I'm not built to be an actor.
While we're talking about personal acting experience, I was in a church Christmas play. I was very proud of myself because I was the only one in my family who got a speaking role and not just a little annoying choir kid in the background
Get
role.
wrecked, Steven.
Yeah, Steven and Daniel had to sit there in the back. Those are my brothers, and they had to sing a song. Anyways, it's like this church Christmas musical. And I got a spot as one of the wise men. And boy, oh boy, was I excited. The reason I wanted to be in the play was because I thought if you were in the play, you get to keep the costume afterwards, which much to my chagrin, I could not keep the purple satin sheik's robe that I wore. Anyway, I had a line, which was a new star. And I wept in my mom's room. It's one of my earliest memories. I wept in my parents' bedroom rehearsing the line and completely swore off acting. But I did it, and I was shaking I was shaking so bad when I was like a 5-year-old kid. Oh, it was crazy. So that was my acting experience, and never did anything else ever again. But boy, I can sure act my way out of a lot of other situations.
Yeah,
So
we gotta get back into our career of acting. Now that we're both podcasters, we can act.
So
That's
here-
how that works.
So before we get back into it, here's a question I have for you.
Okay.
Did you want to like take a crack at acting after going and watching those performances, or kind of have like, you know, when you go to a superhero movie and you get home and you do a few push-ups?
Yeah.
We all know that feeling, right? It's not just me.
Yeah, it's definitely not just you, Joel. That's not nerdy or anything at all.
No,
It's very
it's
respectable.
cool. I want to be buff. I want to be like Captain America. No, but did you feel like, oh, maybe I could do some acting or something? Like maybe just
Like,
take a crack at
I
it.
think there was like a part of me that was like, it'd be kind of fun to just like do this for fun.
Yeah.
Because like I know I'll never even like all of the actors were good, but I'll never like it's too late for me to even reach like the level of like if there was a worst one we saw that day,
Yeah.
I would not reach their level.
And I wouldn't have like the brain capacity, I think, to memorize that many lines and be that disciplined. But I don't know, kind of crossed my head of like, this could be a fun thing to try. I mean,
Yeah, it
at some
would
point.
be enjoyable. But I mean, I also have just huge respect
Oh my gosh, I could not do
Stage
what they were doing on the level. So the first act of the play, it kind of good, kind of bad.
Yeah,
You know,
it
had
was- it was a fun subversion.
yeah.
And that was kind of all the legs that it had.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, oh, there's that cheeky twist, and we'll play it out a little more. And then I kind of thought the play was over after the first act.
Yeah, I thought it was done too, and I was like, okay, I think that's it, and now we're gonna go home.
Yeah.
And then the trip sets in,
Oh,
where I
yeah.
started tripping balls without any sort of chemical assistance or anything, and the rest was just a fever dream. And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I mean, ultimately, it was like such a symbolic play.
Yeah.
And that's something I was thinking about in regards to like the other aspect of theater, right?
Mhm.
Is that like we watched the first play and it was super charming, but we came to this play and the strength of the play was in the fact that it was a play, not because it was personal or relatable, but because it used the medium of the stage to tell us something interesting. There was so much symbolism that wouldn't have worked in a movie context.
Yeah.
Like there's this weird scene where the girl is watching as her former boyfriend is getting tortured in various ways.
Yeah.
And she's like watching from a distance. It's like this super like vague kind of trippy thing. And as she watches him get tortured, this other guy that she's with, who's like kind of this mystical man, tells her, put on the mask, as she's horrified by these things she's watching. And she puts on the mask, and suddenly she sees it very distantly and sees all the pain he's going through. And she's like, oh, this is entertaining. This is cute. And like, I'm not sure I entirely understood the symbolism in terms of like what it was directly commenting on, but there was this aspect of like the culture we live in will accept all sorts of misery as entertainment
Mm.
as long as we can turn off our empathy
Mm.
and just see the suffering of others as entertainment.
Yeah.
Like maybe an example of that would be like your guilty pleasure of cringe compilations or something like that. I don't know.
Wow, you're really just dragging that out. Here. No,
I don't know.
but I'm glad that we kind of latched on to the same thing as a standout moment Because that when that started happening, because I wasn't sure how the story was gonna go, because it was like, oh, we're breaking up. We don't actually like being together. It's miserable. You annoy me. We're gonna break up. I wasn't expecting this journey to kind of take place where the boyfriend's going to go on this prodigal son journey and basically say, okay, I'm hurt by this, so I'm gonna go and see everything that the world has to offer, you know. And the girl is then immediately moved on to the next person. And there was just I think there was a lot of stuff about relationships, and it was trippy because there's all this swirling music and bright psychedelic lights, and it's just like, you know, you're just watching the play, and all of a sudden the guy comes out in the audience and he's like on a bed of nails and he's screaming, and they're singing down there, and it's like, put on the mask, and I'm sitting there like bulging eyes, like, this means so much to me and I can't process this, like my brain receptors are firing. But I think like I got that put on the mask thing was like, I saw it in the same way. It's like, don't have empathy, not necessarily I didn't necessarily see it as for entertainment, but just don't have empathy in general. Like don't allow yourself to be hurt or reach out or feel anything, you know, whether that's drugs or alcohol or, you know, whatever vice it might be, or like anything to keep you away from actually feeling anything. That mask kind of symbolized like, put on the filter, and all of a sudden, and maybe you could even see that in like the lens of like social media, where you're not actually seeing the real situation. You're just getting a snippet of it. And it's like, put on the mask, put on your lenses, and view the situation through this. And that was a trip. And that's kind of coming near the end of the play. And when that was ramping up, I could see my brain start to.
Oh, both of our brains were just mush. And it led me into this existential crisis where I'm watching this deeply symbolic play, and I had a realization.
Wait. Hold on. Before I come to that, when Trent and I were walking back to the car, Trent looked like a little lost puppy, and he was like very earnestly and genuine. He's like, Joel, I think I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm freaking out. Like, he was like tripping. Like, he was like having this metaphysical trip. And he's like, Joel, I'm having an existential crisis right now. And I was like, save that. We need to talk about it later. I don't want to hear about it. So now I get to hear about it. I'm very excited.
So the existential crisis was this idea that like, I have been living my life kind of incorrectly. And I talked about it a little earlier in the podcast, where I said, like, there's so much out there that I just didn't even know that I could enjoy. And like, I'm watching this play and I'm just so enraptured in it. It's entertainment that I have never experienced before. And I realized that I only had tiny, minuscule portion of the life that I could have. I literally have no idea what is out there for me. There are so many new ideas and new experiences that I have no idea that I will fall in love with. But they're out there, and I need to, like, if I work and find them, I can. But I've been so set on this path of, you are in the demographic that plays video games. You are in the demographic that watches these shows. You will do these things because that is the demographic you're in. And I had this existential crisis of, I am not who this is made for. I am not the person expected to go here. I am not the person that this was made for. Nobody told me that I was the sort of person who could find deep joy and deep meaning in a musical. And I've been missing out on stuff like this my whole life. And I have no idea what's out there because I have been so set in what is expected of me, what is my demographic, that I've just been missing out on so many experiences. I literally have no idea what I can enjoy.
Hmm.
I experienced entertainment that was outside of my realm. I've watched live actors and empathized with them more because I could see them right in front of me. And that was so surreal. And there were special effects, and I was just so engaged. And literally, I would have missed that if I didn't decide to do a podcast with my buddy and randomly decide that instead of going to my friend's play, we were going to go watch 2 random plays.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, that just, I'm glad that was the existential crisis that you had and not, something else, but that's so meaningful. Like, thank you for sharing that. That's so meaningful. And I think I want to encourage you and say, you're 24, 25?
24.
24, not 25 yet.
Not even 24 and a half.
Dang. I think our 20s are good throwaway years.
Yeah.
In the sense that we can go and experience that stuff. I'm happy you're having this existential crisis now instead of when you're 50.
Yeah.
Because
I got time to do stuff.
Yeah. Like, you get to step out of your demographic and see what the world has to offer and see what you might enjoy that you never thought you could. And I think we all have a little bit of that in us, but some of us never realize it.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're realizing it right now is going to open you to a whole new world of things outside your comfort zone. Because it's not comfortable going to a play in Cripple Creek.
It was so weird.
It was so weird. But you're forever better because of it.
Yeah. And that's always a story we're gonna have. And it's always a podcast episode we're gonna have.
Hey.
Unless we get embarrassed by this content and delete it.
Yeah, screw you, Spotify. No, dude, but that makes me really happy to see that you have that experience. And, I think I didn't have necessarily as a profound experience, but I was just happy. I was happy to be doing something different.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, this would, if I had a girlfriend, wink, this would be a great place to take a girlfriend and just have an evening. This would be something I'd want to go do with my dad. This is something I'd want to go do with you again. I said, even in the middle of the last play that we went to, like, we should do this more often. Like, this is just a good thing to do as friends.
It was very healthy.
Yeah.
Like, a good bonding experience.
Yeah.
And we talked about wanting to go see that Christmas play again.
Yeah. And I think there's just a beauty in that. Cause it's like wholesome. You just kind of show up, you do your thing, you're exposed to new ideas. And it doesn't have to be, it can be as much as you want it to be. You can just be there to listen to some of the music and say, oh, that's fun music. You can go look for deep and meaningful ideas. But it's, at the end of the day, you make it whatever you want it to be for you, Yeah.
And I think we've already hit exactly the epitome of what I wanted this podcast to be.
Yeah.
Where it's a new experience. And I think kind of the idea with the title is like, we're not necessarily like these super like uncultured to the point of being unable to enjoy like new things. Like that's not the idea of the title.
We're just sloppy.
We're just sloppy. And
we spill coffee on ourselves before we go in the Playhouse and unbutton
the
our
title
shirts.
is mostly in reference to Joel. It's actually
Trent is the pearl.
I'm the pearl and Joel's the swine.
Yeah.
But no, we're both swine.
We're both swine.
Yeah. But we're just haven't experienced as much as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, we both have pretty unique experiences,
Yeah.
but I mean, not at the same time. Like, I've felt tied down to my demographic,
Yeah.
and I haven't gone out of my way to seek out new things.
Yeah.
And here we are. And so I would consider this first month of our podcast a big success in terms of what we were able to accomplish for ourselves.
Me too. I'm very happy to be along with this ride, and I think going and doing our first Pigs in the Field episode and getting to do research for our podcast, so having some context and meaning behind what we were doing, but just like having a good time.
Yeah, it's very edifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was also my goal, is like, if nobody ever listens to this podcast, like,
We had a good time.
yeah, we had a good time, and like a very enriching time too.
Yeah.
Like, by the end of this, I hope to be able to say, like, I'm a well-read man.
Or well listened, man, with all the audiobooks.
Oh yeah, you're a well-listened man.
You're a well listening man.
I've always said that about you, Joel.
No, you definitely haven't.
Yeah.
No, but I think being out there in the field doing our stuff, I got the deep appreciation from this project more than ever, because it was just, this is me and my buddy doing a project, working on something, and loving our lives. And for that day, I was very content and very happy with life in general, because
Yeah.
it was just I thought when I was going to reach my mid-20s or creeping up into my mid-20s that stuff would slow down, jobs would be really important, all this stuff. And it was just cool to see that you and I can still go out and just try something new. And, I know it'll sound stupid to older people listening, but when you're in that stage in your life, it can feel easy to feel like you're just in this one speed, and that's it. You had your college fun, you had your high school fun, buckle down, get serious, bucko. And to just be two goofballs, completely unfit for this world in some ways, walking around this play hall, just like we're out of it. We're here. It really was wholesome and just brought me back to childhood again, and just friends having fun. And yeah, I'm just deeply appreciative of how this first month has gone, and how that experience has gone. And I'm so excited to try more new experiences together as we move forward.
And we've got a lot coming down the
We
pipeline.
do.
Let's see, what do we have in the next month? So first off is the movie The Godfather.
The Godfather.
Then it's the album Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys.
Very excited.
Very notably, Nothing by the Rolling Stones. I'm still going to give you crap for that.
Guys, we're doing the Rolling Stones next week.
Yeah, both of our listeners were trying to figure out which songs in the Rolling Stones discography it was, and they were super disappointed.
Oh man, we're gonna get a bunch of hate mail from our two listeners.
Yeah.
You can send your angry tweets at our Twitter account.
What?
No Twitter account.
No, I think Steven made one. We just haven't used it yet.
Man, we should try to get banned already.
You can do that at some point.
Do some defamatory stuff.
So then the book is In Search of Lost Time, Part 1, Swan's Way. It's a lot of pages. It's a lot of words. It's a very dense read. Let's go.
I'm going to be very overstimulated by the end of this book.
This upcoming month, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
It's always going to be brimming with content. And guess what? You think you're some young, hot, cool listener with a phone number that I might acquire, me, Joel.
Wait, what?
And it's summer, it's summerish time, and you're out and you're having fun, and you're thinking, I don't need to listen to an hour and a half podcast of these two dudes rambling. Well, guess what? wintertime is almost here and it's going to be cold and everyone's going to be indoors doing their stuff and be miserable. And you're going to need something in the background. And boy, oh boy, Swine Before Pearls going to enter your earlobes very soon. I don't know why I went on that rant, but I felt very passionate that there's some West Coast person who thinks they're too good for our podcast. And I'm here to show that we're not.
Oh, good. That they'll skip exactly to this time stamp in the podcast and find out exactly why they were wrong.
You got to witness me just have a mental lapse where I'm sure I was trying to make a point, but
yeah, you sure made it to the haters that are gonna get this far into the podcast.
I was just gonna. I think I was just gonna say we have a lot of content coming up, and it's good content to go through.
Yeah,
and you're gonna have a lot of time to go through it. You West Coast elite guys are awful.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for listening.
Have I told you how much I hate California baseball teams?
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
I have some more. Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Swine Before Pearls podcast. Our executive producers have been Joel Kennicott, Trent Grauman, and Stephen Kennicott. Music is by Twizzled and used with permission. For more podcast information and for more episodes, please go to podcast.swinebeforepearls.com.